Hi, in this demonstration, I'm going to take you through a day in the life of a tester using Parasoft's continuous quality platform. Before we get started, I want to give you an overview of testing strategy. At Parasoft, we are aligned to the testing pyramid. The testing pyramid is all about how many tests of which types you should be building at each layer. We feel there's a missing layer to this pyramid, and that's where we'll start, at the bottom of the test pyramid, which is static code analysis to scan code sources, looking for code that can lead to bad practice. This is a great way to identify defects early. Moving up a level, unit testing is a process of creating tests against the actual code, the classes, and the methods. Looking at the top three layers of the pyramid, you have API testing, automated UI testing, manual testing, and another component that spans these layers in the testing practice, which is service virtualization. The ability to simulate test environments and create virtual services to stabilize those test environments. I'll show you some capabilities to rapidly build those virtual services. Very well then, let's get started. Here is an overview of what I'm going to take you through today. You might notice this particular overview is a big circle. That's because it's intended to be comprehensive of a process that is iterative in nature, bringing you back home to begin again to ensure full end-to-end testing. So, let's wipe the slate clean and begin with requirements, recording, and generating intelligent tests from those recordings using Parasoft's AI-driven Smart API test generation technology. A key part of building a successful testing practice is in aligning that testing practice to metrics such as code coverage, requirements coverage, and API coverage. So, in the Parasoft solution, you start with the requirements. I'm working with Jira, and Parasoft technology allows you to import those requirements into your testing tool so that you're working with the current user stories that you're trying to validate. You're building tests against those requirements. Now, when it comes time to building a test, there are many techniques. You traditionally would start with building use cases against the UI, but actually a much better place to start is the APIs being used by your application. The API is the machine-to-machine communication, and if you're building a UI on top of the application, they represent the underlying mechanics that are gathering the data for your UI. So, I prefer to start here at the API layer. The Parasoft technology allows you to record interactions with the user interface and capture the traffic produced by those actions, which is then used to generate API tests. Parasoft has a plugin for the Chrome browser that allows you to record your scenarios by going through the actual use case and from that create a UI test, an API test, or both. When I speak of using AI for test creation, it works like this. Once the actual traffic is observed, the AI will look for patterns and relationships in the different API calls. It will then construct meaningful API test scenarios that emulate what the user was doing as they were interacting with the user interface. From this, the Parasoft solution will create rich codeless API tests that you can then run as is in association with the requirement. Or you could expand upon them and create other types of scenarios. But you have a greater understanding of what those APIs are because you are modeling them against the actual use case that you recorded. We take this a step beyond with machine learning. Parasoft allows you to create smart test templates. These test templates store additional rules that you can train into the tool to help you build better tests through observation. The result is the more that you use the solution, the smarter the tests become. Back to our overview, I'd now like to introduce you to our native API security penetration testing. And now that we've focused strongly on the importance of API testing, I'll touch on UI testing using Selenium and its ability to enable Selenium tests to self-heal. I'll then demonstrate how you can use your API tests and convert your UI tests to use them in a performance testing capacity with Parasoft Load Test. With Parasoft's 30-plus year history in test automation, we saw a need for change and led the charge to the focus on the importance of API testing. Today, there's a new need, shifting left API security testing to remove silos in the we versus them organization paradigm. Security should be everyone's concern. Parasoft gives development teams the ability to address security from the start of the SDLC by adding penetration testing to functional API tests with full reporting that provides information to find and fix vulnerabilities when they're easiest and the least expensive to fix. By combining these different technologies into a scenario and aligning that to the requirements, you can build a broad set of meaningful API tests and validate that critical middleware. Now let's move up the pyramid. Remember back when I showed you that recorder? The recorder also has the ability to create UI tests, and now these UI tests that we're recording are using the best possible locators. Frequently, locators and maintainability are a huge problem when it comes to UI testing because application interfaces change constantly. You spend a lot of time repairing those UI tests after that change. These UI tests that are created are not generated in some special proprietary vendor interface. We create them in Selenium using our Parasoft Selenic solution. As you'll see, these tests are written in Java using frameworks such as JUnit or TestNG, and this is a pure Selenium test that you can run as is with no vendor lock. To make these tests more maintainable and to enhance your existing Selenium practice, the Parasoft technology performs self-healing at runtime and also gives recommendations as the test is executing. We identify that something has changed or something has broken. And this can create a maintainable, automated UI testing practice on top of your testing pyramid. There is additional capability that's built into this technology, such as the performance benchmarking, which helps you understand if your Selenium tests are slowing down and where you might have potential performance bottlenecks. This helps you identify potential performance testing targets. If you identify a performance bottleneck in a particular application, you want to connect that to those API tests. You can use the ones that were previously created, or you could convert new Selenium recordings into new API tests. And once you have your API tests, you can run these as load tests. The Parasoft Continuous Quality Platform includes a performance testing solution that allows you to run these performance tests as part of your daily performance work by shifting left that exercise into the QA realm. You can also run these in an automated way, but we'll talk more about that as we move forward. And on our overview again, I'll introduce the power of virtualization using Parasoft Virtualize. And after we've virtualized assets, I'll show you how to manage your test environments and cover useful functionality in CTP. I'll then touch on our test data management product. Once you've established a broad practice of automated UI testing and automated API testing, and you feel confident that you're covering all of those interfaces of your application, the next thing that you should look at are the back-end systems. When it comes to doing automated testing against our systems, we often forget that our applications are just made up of a series of internal and external systems, or APIs. Those systems may belong to us, but in most cases, especially in service-oriented architectures, they do not. If any of the systems are misbehaving, then we can't test our application as a whole. And this is where service virtualization comes in. Service virtualization allows us to simulate the responses that come from back-end systems. We can then use these services in our testing practice and test anytime, anywhere. Parasoft makes this a reality through Parasoft Virtualize, our service virtualization solution. With Parasoft Virtualize, you first start by creating a diagram so that you understand the endpoints, the UIs, and the different systems involved in your testing. And then through recording, you can create simulated representations of those back-end systems. This is very similar to the reconstruction that you saw during the Smart API test generation. We look for patterns and relationships in request-response pairs, and we automatically correlate these to each other so that you can achieve different responses depending upon the type of information that you send in. And it's not just simple SOAP and REST. You can simulate over 120 message formats and protocols that you can know whatever type of technology you're dealing with inside of the system. You can create a virtual service that performs like the real thing. Those services can then be orchestrated using that same environment diagram that you created before. You can use this to swap in different types of services and change their data behavior to support positive, negative, or unexpected behavior. You can also deploy the service by redirecting traffic without having to redeploy the application. Now, one thing that becomes really important when you start talking about holistically testing applications and environments is the test data. Many environments become untestable, not because of service outages, but rather because those systems do not have the data that you need or expect. And Parasoft provides a test data management architecture that allows you to automatically build models from any of the recorded traffic. You can then dive into each of these models, and you can create rules for generating new data. You could generate that data on the fly or as part of an automated process. Put it into your test cases and your virtual services and feel confident that you have the necessary data to test effectively. Now, all of this can be automated and run continuously. This entire system, the tests, the performance profiles, generated test data, and the automatic deploying virtual services, this can all be done as an integrated part of your CI/CD or DevOps pipeline. Inside of the pipeline, you'll find a series of plugins that allow you to choose the different types of tests and environment configurations that you want to run. Simply choose those, and then every time that the code checks in, the application gets built, deploys the proper environment, runs the tests, and then delivers the results back into the Parasoft ecosystem or back into the build system to pass or fail the build. And last on our overview, we'll push reports and data to DTP where you can get a full perspective of the current state of your testing. And I'll finish off showing you some powerful tools to supercharge your testing process. Parasoft Development Testing Platform, or Parasoft DTP, provides multi-layered interactive dashboards that allow you to see the results of your tests and allows you to see which requirements those tests are correlated with. It allows you to correlate coverage information so that you can understand both functionally and non-functionally how those applications are being tested. But are you covering a sufficient amount of code? All this information comes together to give you a high-level, highly interactable view on the continuous quality of your application. The last thing I want to cover is change. Many testing practices fall apart when it comes to handling change. Identifying, remediating, and acting upon change becomes critical enablers of your testing practices. Parasoft has many techniques to help overcome the challenges associated with change, starting with the UI tests. Earlier I mentioned self-healing and recommendations. Those are based on change. If, during the web UI testing, the test senses application change, the AI kicks in to help you understand what those changes mean from a testing perspective. Those tests can then be updated so that your new UI tests will work against the new versions of the application. Those recommendations are delivered back into the IDE so that testers can make those changes in the code. When it comes to API change, we have a similar workflow. Parasoft Change Advisor is an AI-powered solution that monitors API definitions, and if any of those API definitions were to change, it creates a change template to help you understand the difference between multiple versions of the application so you can make any needed updates. And finally, what about code change? Code change indicates that something about the application is different than it was in the previous build. Parasoft has technology known as Test Impact Analysis, or TIA, which enables you to re-execute test cases that are associated with the sections of code that have changed. We do this in a couple of ways: by scanning code services and also through something called binary analysis. With binary analysis, you simply point at the new WAR file or the new jar file, and the solution will tell you what changed from a code perspective. And because we've mapped the individual API tests and UI tests to the code, we can automatically rerun only the tests that are affected by change. This subset of tests can be run much faster than the full test suite when you only need to verify a portion of the application. This also significantly reduces the amount of time you spend looking through results because you're only looking at those tests that were affected by the change. And from that, you would then review the results and understand the priority as associated to those original requirements, which brings you full circle back to where you started. Through this iterative and continuous process, you have a complete end-to-end testing solution for all of your functional needs. Back on our overview, we've come full circle. I promised I'd bring you home again to begin our iterative testing process again using Parasoft's continuous quality platform. Contact Parasoft to learn more about how you can optimize your software test automation to produce high-quality applications.